Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a way of learning that kind of flips the usual script. You see, instead of starting with textbooks and all the answers, it starts with a question. It's a way of thinking that can really transform how we see the world.
So, let's just start with a really big question. How does real learning actually begin? And I don't mean just, cramming facts for a test. I'm talking about that moment of true, deep understanding. Where does that spark, where does it even come from?
Well, it turns out it starts right here, with that simple but really powerful sense of wonder. That feeling of looking up at the night sky or peering into a microscope and just asking, why? Or how does that work? That is the engine of real learning.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little. That feeling, that sense of wonder, it's actually at the heart of a process called inquiry-based learning. And it's really all about taking that first little spark of curiosity and turning it into something much bigger, into real wisdom.
So what is it exactly? Well, inquiry-based learning, we'll call it IBL for short, is basically an approach to education that puts wonder right at the very beginning. The whole point isn't to race to some single correct answer. The real value is in the journey of exploration itself.
And you gotta understand, this is a totally active process. I mean, it's the complete opposite of just sitting there and having information fed to you. You start with a big, juicy question, and from there, you start to form your own ideas, right? Your own hypotheses. Then, you figure out ways to actually test them. And this part's key. You take time to reflect on what you're discovering.
Yeah, and this quote really just nails it. See, with IBL, that line between the hands-on stuff and the deep thinking, it just gets blurry. The stuff you do changes how you think, and how you think changes what you do next. It becomes this incredible, powerful loop.
So that's the big idea. But how do you actually, do it? Well, this whole approach really stands on three main pillars that make it all happen.
Okay, so first, it all kicks off with a really provocative question, something that connects a science idea to a bigger, more human problem. Then, step two, you design experiments that are open-ended. The goal here isn't to get one final answer, but to open up doors to even more questions. And third, and this is so important, you encourage people to keep what are called discovery journals.
And listen, it's so important to get this. These are not your typical lab notebooks for just writing down data. No, they're more like a space to map out your entire journey of thinking. You record what you notice, with your senses, the new questions you start to wonder about, and those big aha moments you realize along the way. It's like you're creating a map of your own brain at work.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little abstract, so let's bring it back down to Earth. Or actually, let's do the opposite. Let's take this concept to the stars with a real example.
So, here's our big question. Can humans live sustainably on another planet? Now, notice something right away. This is not a simple yes or no question, right? It just instantly fires up your imagination and makes you think on this huge scale.
And what's really cool is, the second you ask a question like this, something amazing happens. It completely shatters the walls between different school subjects. I mean, how could you even start to answer it without getting into physics and biology and technology and, this is a big one, environmental ethics? It just forces you to think across all these different fields at once.
And this, right here, is where you see the real power of IBL. Because a question like this one, it's not just about the science of how do we stay alive. It forces us, it makes us look at our own moral responsibility. Should we even go? What are the potential consequences? What does sustainably even mean when you're talking about a whole other world?
So, we've seen what it is and how it can work. But let's wrap up with what's maybe the most important question of all. Why does this method work so well? Like, what's the deep, lasting impact of learning like this?
Well, it really boils down to developing two huge things at the same time. On one side, you're building some serious scientific reasoning skills, learning how to come up with an idea, test it, look at the results. But, and this is just as important, you're also growing what you could call your moral imagination. That's the ability to really think about the human side, the ethical side of all this knowledge.
And that, right there, is really the big takeaway. With inquiry-based learning, you're not just mastering a set of skills. You start to really get the context, the purpose, the real-world impact of it all. You learn not just how to do something, but why it matters. So I'll just leave you with this. Now that we've kind of gone through this whole idea of leading with a question, what new questions does that spark for you? What do you wonder now?